I find myself in a rather perplexing situation, and articulating the intricacies of it proves to be a challenge. To commence this narrative, my fiancé and I, bound by a romantic union that has withstood the test of 5 years, find ourselves on the cusp of matrimony, a prospect scheduled to materialize this upcoming summer. It is noteworthy to acknowledge that I, a denizen of my early 40s, am entwined with a woman in her early 30s, and the tapestry of our relationship still retains the vibrancy and ardor reminiscent of its nascent stages. Our saga commenced in the confines of a workplace, where we were once colleagues stationed in disparate departments. The bedrock of our connection was a solid and respectful friendship, which, over the passage of time, metamorphosed into a more profound and romantic entanglement. Throughout the trajectory of our companionship, an authentic sense of happiness has been our constant companion. Our intimate life is not only satisfying but burgeons with a contentment that permeates various facets of our existence. Financial concerns are conspicuously absent, and our interpersonal dynamics are characterized by trust, respect, open communication, and shared interests. The tapestry of our shared experiences is woven with moments of joy, marked by a conspicuous absence of mistrust or insecurity, even when we venture into the realms of our individual pursuits. However, I find myself compelled to divulge a chapter from the annals of our history. When our paths first crossed in the professional domain, she was betrothed to another. While I steadfastly abstained from engaging in any form of unfaithful behavior, a subtle undercurrent of inappropriate flirtation was palpable at times. Fast forward to the recent past, particularly a soirée we hosted in September, where the specter of doubt first insinuated itself into the sanctuary of our relationship. As we gathered with 3 other couples for an intimate dinner, my fiancée, who revels in orchestrating such gatherings, assumed the role of a meticulous seating arranger. Positioned between her close female friend and the friend's husband, whom I'll refer to as Bob, an unusual tableau unfurled before my eyes. As I shuttled between the kitchen and the dining area, the realization struck me like a bolt of lightning. My fiancé and Bob, seated next to each other, appeared to be surreptitiously holding hands beneath the table. A peculiar dissonance unfolded within me, akin to stumbling upon a burglary in progress at one's domicile. The initial glance was dismissed as a trick of the eye, yet subsequent observations heightened my vigilance and eroded the bedrock of security within our relationship. This unease lingered and manifested itself in disconcerting ways as the calendar pages turned to November. During our shared moments of exhaustion and leisure in front of the television, our individual devices in tow, a disconcerting pattern emerged. My fiancée, an active denizen of Facebook with an extensive network of friends, subtly positioned herself in a manner that aroused suspicion. This peculiar positioning persisted from November into the present, casting a shadow over the idyllic landscape of our relationship. Unable to catch a glimpse of her screen, a subtle change in our dynamics emerged. A shift from the times when we could casually share our screens while sitting on the couch together. Before all this unfolded, the idea of inviting Bob and his wife to our planned January vacation crossed my mind. Despite my dislike for Bob and a lingering unease that made me hesitant, I couldn't articulate solid reasons to exclude them. Frustration grew within my fiancée as she pressed me for an explanation. However, circumstances, perhaps exacerbated by the ongoing challenges like the global pandemic, led us to cancel the holiday. After delving into numerous threads, a realization struck me: I am fortunate in some aspects. We aren't married, have no kids, and lack concrete evidence of any wrongdoing. Yet, my intuition remains on high alert, though not yet at a critical level. A growing sense of shame engulfs me as this emerging obsession starts to significantly impact my life. The question arises: should I contemplate taking steps, such as hiring a private investigator or using invasive methods like voice-activated recorders in her car, or attempting to access her devices to essentially spy on her? What adds to my frustration is the realization that had I not noticed the subtle change in our intimate moments, subsequent clues, answers, and questions wouldn't have triggered my suspicions. I prefer gathering evidence over confrontation, as confrontation without solid proof is not my style. It's not entirely about distrust, but my gut is urging me to be very concerned, and my intuition, rarely wrong, remains persistent. In the midst of all this, the question arises about the placement of the voice-activated recorder. Your point regarding the short-term cost of hiring a private investigator versus the potential expenses of a messy divorce makes sense. Complicating matters, I earn twice as much as she does, and unfortunately, luck doesn't seem to be on my side. Reaching out to her previous fiancé, I contemplated the unfair blame he placed on me for their breakup. However, recognizing his lack of trustworthiness and reliability as a source, I hesitated to take his perspective as gospel truth. Fortunately, our current status as renters offers flexibility, yet our plan to purchase a property by Christmas this year is underway. Negotiating the extravagant real estate prices in our city, we've adopted a cautious approach. Despite currently sharing a living space, the situation could be easily terminated, and we no longer share the same workplace. An unsettling detail emerges as her phone has seemingly become an extension of her, glued to her side for months, leaving me unable to recall the last time I saw it lying around. In the ongoing investigative process, a business trip out of town is scheduled for the weekend after Easter, providing a natural opportunity to observe her actions in my absence. Taking a proactive step, I've hired a private investigator who commences their work tomorrow. Recognizing the urgency to ease my conscience, I engaged in a heart-to-heart conversation with my oldest and closest friend, updating him on my situation. Preparing for an extended weekend in his city, I informed my fiancée about the trip, and her emotional response appeared oddly mixed. Regardless of potential misconduct, the upcoming opportunity might reveal significant insights. As the wedding is set for September, the financial investment remains relatively minimal, with refundable deposits allowing for potential recovery. Contemplating the altered perception of her and potential larger issues in the relationship, I decided against using a voice-activated recorder. Acknowledging the overwhelming potential trauma of discovering infidelity, I resolved to exit the relationship quietly, avoiding unnecessary scenes. Meeting with the private investigator, a shocking revelation unfolded: she is indeed cheating on me with the individual I had mentioned earlier. Utterly devastated, photographic evidence with time-stamped proof has been provided. On Friday night, he stayed overnight at our place, departing the next morning, and on Saturday night, they inexplicably stayed in a hotel until the following morning. Numb and overwhelmed, an update concludes, leaving me grappling with the weight of the day, compounded by the knowledge that a good friend was aware of my situation. Among the troubling snapshots, one stood out: a photo from the hotel where they were caught kissing at dinner and the next morning sharing a goodbye kiss in the parking lot. The audacity of their actions was baffling. They weren't even in another city. However, the most distressing image was the first one from Friday night when Bob arrived at my place. Living in a duplex, she had to open the front door to let him in, capturing the sheer joyous excitement in her eyes, a moment forever etched in my memory. An hour later, my friend visited my place after delivering the photos to the other betrayed spouse. He handed my fiancée a package I had prepared for her. Inside were the incriminating photos and a simple note from me expressing that any future goodwill towards her, albeit only in my mind, hinged on her willingness to divulge the whole truth. I made it clear that our relationship was over and any thoughts of marriage were extinguished. Granting her until Thursday afternoon to vacate our shared space, which I covered financially, I requested that she leave her engagement ring in a clearly visible spot. Just minutes before my friend delivered the package to my fiancé, I missed 2 calls from her, followed by several anxious texts inquiring about my whereabouts, questioning why I wasn't answering, and expressing concern about my absence from work. The speculation arose that Bob might have alerted her in a panic, thinking someone had caught wind of their affair, and they were on the brink of exposure. Upon receiving my package, she bombarded me with more missed calls and texts, pleading for a call. Just before I started typing this, I received 2 emotional voicemails from her. The first was nearly unintelligible, filled with screams and cries, while the second contained an admission that she couldn't deny the reality of the photos. She claimed it was the first and only time they had ever engaged in such behavior, suggesting that Bob took advantage of her when they got too drunk on Friday, and one thing led to another. In an unusual departure from my usual honesty, I responded with a single lie through text, stating, "I saw you two holding hands under." The same private detective, diligently gathering evidence for months, focused on providing undeniable proof by capturing photos from this weekend's events at our dinner party in September. In conveying the finality of our relationship, I stressed the importance of doing the right thing, ceasing the lies, refraining from taking me for a fool, and, most crucially, telling the whole truth. While the response has been non-existent, my gratitude extends to those here who offered advice, even those suggesting more drastic approaches like involving her family. Yet, true to my style, I know I must navigate this situation authentically. The profound trauma that this experience has and will inflict upon me requires staying true to my core. Despite the tempting lure of revenge stories, plotting and executing such schemes are not aligned with my nature. My strength stems from avoiding an in-person conversation about this, permanently ending our engagement. Refusing to entertain the possibility of reconciliation, and requesting her swift departure from our shared space. In a moment of transparency, I acknowledge a petty thought that has crossed my mind. Despite Bob being younger than me, falling between her age and mine, he is seemingly less intelligent and emotionally sensitive, traits I believed she valued. Adding to the irony, objectively, I am considered much better looking than him. While it may sound superficial, the truth remains. Comparisons to a well-known British movie star in romantic comedies have been drawn for me, while he, despite his muscular build, is likened to a bulldog. The incomprehensibility of her choice deepens as they also share the responsibility of raising two young kids, a factor that adds another layer to the situation. The trials of the past week have been incredibly tough, and the emotional roller coaster reached its peak on Monday night, when my now ex-girlfriend managed to figure out where I was staying and insisted on my friend letting her in. His refusal led to a barrage of texts and tearful voicemails expressing a desire for a second chance. She admitted to a physical affair over the past weekend but claimed that the emotional affair had been ongoing since July 2020. Opting for silence, I chose not to respond, prompting her to escalate her messages from attempts at affection to nastier tones by Tuesday afternoon. In a surprising assertion last night, she claimed that my attempts to break up her relationship with Bob and the other betrayed spouse would fail because the other betrayed spouse valued forgiveness. This presumption left me astonished, considering her belief in her insight into someone else's mindset and the quickness with which forgiveness had apparently been granted. Finally breaking my silence, I questioned her motives, and after some hesitation, she conveyed that my perfectionism made her feel unable to freely express herself early in our relationship. At the 2-year mark, she claimed that Bob made her feel secure and protected, fostering open communication. However, her attempts to recall instances hindering communication were minor arguments, either resolved or not solely related to my perfectionism. Despite her pleas for another chance and a willingness to do whatever it takes, I find it hard to believe her sincerity. Feeling emotionally drained and utterly exhausted, lacking proper sleep since Sunday, I am considering taking sleeping pills tonight. My self-esteem has taken a severe blow, and the shattered emotional and spiritual image of my ex-girlfriend makes any future with her seem impossible. Irreparable damage to trust further complicates the situation, and while some relief surfaces in avoiding a life with someone of low integrity, humiliating questions about my physical aspects linger. An update on the past week unfolds like an unbelievable whirlwind, as if it flew by in a blink yet felt like an eternity. Wednesday night became chaotic when my fiancée adamantly declared she wouldn't move out under any circumstances. In response, I threatened to share the incriminating photos with her family, leading to harsh exchanges and a sleepless night. Thursday morning brought a sweet text filled with apologies, promising to pack and spend the weekend elsewhere. Pleading not to disclose anything, she believed we could mend things. I questioned why I shouldn't reveal the real reason behind canceling our wedding, and she insisted it would ruin any chance of reconciliation. Returning to my place on Thursday night proved to be an incredibly challenging ordeal, as it felt like a twisted break in where the invasion was evident, yet concrete evidence eluded my eyes. Most of her belongings were gone, but she had left behind the engagement ring. Driven by an inexplicable compulsion, I reached out to my fiancé's ex-boyfriend, the one she had cheated on with me. Finding him easily on Facebook, I sent a message, alerting him to the urgency of our discussion and requesting a call. To my surprise, he responded promptly, and our brief yet impactful conversation revealed a crucial piece of information: their engagement had ended due to her repeated infidelity. With a 3-plus-hour drive to his town the following day for a dinner invitation, I finally had the chance to reflect on the incredible 100 hours or so in my life. The revelation that my wayward fiancé had a history of cheating filled me with a whirlwind of emotions: anger, relief, sadness, confusion, embarrassment, and many more. About an hour away from his place, I mustered the courage to pull over at a picturesque rest stop, dialing the number of the other betrayed spouse, not expecting her to answer. To my surprise, she did, and our conversation was marked by lengthy, tearful silences. She disclosed that her husband had cheated on her before their wedding and when she was 6 months pregnant with their second child. Despite these betrayals, they had apparently worked through their issues, and disturbingly, she framed my wayward fiancé as the aggressor, painting her husband as the victim of a predatory woman. Even more shocking was her revelation that many people knew about my fiancé's infidelity with her ex-fiancé but had kept it from me to spare my feelings. When I inquired about her plans, she disclosed that her husband was willing to do whatever it takes to mend things with my wayward fiancé, including counseling and full transparency. For these reasons and more, she decided to stay with him, and the most important detail she casually mentioned at the end of our conversation was her eagerness to start over with him after the Easter weekend. As he had an unexpected business trip over the weekend, leaving on Friday and returning yesterday, Monday. With the fog of deception from my wayward fiancé finally clearing, my senses were on high alert, prompting an immediate contact with my excellent private detective to apprise him of this development. After the initial exposure of the affair, he had advised me to retain his services a little longer, as it's common for exposed individuals like Bob to continue their affairs but become more cautious. With the revelation of her past infidelities, I authorized further investigative work on the part of the private detective to uncover any concealed details. Meeting with my wayward fiancé's ex, we opted for a steakhouse to navigate the emotional minefield of being two men betrayed by the same woman. The initial 30 minutes proved incredibly challenging, both grappling with a whirlwind of emotions. However, as the conversation progressed, he shared details of my wayward fiancé's numerous infidelities during their relationship and expressed deep regret for repeatedly taking her back. Strangely, what convinced him to reconcile with her was her comparing him favorably to her other partners, questioning how he could be so foolish to be with an inferior man when she had him. I sensed a mix of emotions within him, anger and sorrow on my behalf, but also a primal level of relief that his worst suspicions about her had been confirmed. Understanding this complex response, not as deriving pleasure from my suffering but finding closure, was liberating for both of us. As much as Friday turned out well, Saturday was dreadful, waking up to a venomous message on a private Facebook group dedicated to the cancelled wedding. My wayward fiancé had posted a message insinuating that despite efforts to address emotional strain, I couldn't overcome negative patterns, leaving me utterly shocked. Maintaining complete silence, I refrained from communicating with her or the group. Although my family is aware of the situation, I pondered why she had a change of heart after expressing a desire to reconcile on Thursday morning. The allure of being with Bob seemed irresistibly intoxicating, and her actions genuinely puzzled me. One would think she'd want to keep me around while enjoying the secret excitement of her affair. However, her note suggested otherwise, raising questions about her true feelings towards me. To make matters more bewildering, I later discovered that she and Bob had checked into a luxurious spa about 90 minutes outside of town that Friday night. More photos, more evidence emerged, depicting them dining at a lovely restaurant in the spa resort, adding another layer to the already complex situation. It proved rather easy to capture numerous pictures of a couple deeply in love, seated beside each other at this romantic getaway, providing me with the visual evidence needed. Running low on energy for this update, I'll try to wrap it up succinctly. Armed with photographic proof from 2 affair-filled weekends, I selected the 6 most compelling photos and shared them with our Facebook wedding group. Apologizing for the delay in responding to my wayward fiance's deceitful Saturday message, I explained my visit to her ex-fiancé, expressing disappointment but not surprise at her engaging in similar behavior before. I asked the group to genuinely reflect on whether any part of me had ever appeared even remotely offensive emotionally. I also inquired if my wayward fiancé had ever mentioned to any of them before the affair was exposed that I was emotionally offensive. Believing honest answers to these questions, along with the damning photos, would reveal the truth. Receiving several supportive messages, particularly from the bridesmaids, provided an extra boost of encouragement. Her father, holding me in high regard, invited me for coffee this week, although I remained unsure about the meeting despite our close relationship. As liberating as it has been to break free from this tumultuous 5-year relationship, most of me is shattered beyond belief. I not only question my supposed ability to observe and understand someone I lived with for 5 years but also harbor deep concerns about the profound damage this experience will inflict on all my future relationships. While I am free, I acknowledge the challenge of rebuilding trust. In addressing a topic many have inquired about, she is an exceptionally beautiful woman, often compared to Blake Lively. I mention this not because I want her back but to highlight that she has consistently turned heads throughout her life. Her ex mentioned on Friday night that part of the reason he kept taking her back was to keep such a stunning woman in his life. Since discovering her infidelity, my attitude has changed significantly. My biggest struggle now is my complete blindness to what was happening, stemming from believing the woman inside mirrored the beauty on the surface. I opted not to hire a private investigator for more proof because the initial photos told me everything I needed to know. What left me in disbelief was the fact that both she and he could, within days, continue their affair so openly, as if day meant nothing. Part of me had thought that the private investigator might find nothing during the past investigation. Over the weekend, the photos shattered any lingering hope I might have had that this situation could be overcome. I appreciate the harsh reality check provided by the additional evidence, and in wanting to give her the opportunity to confess to her family and our wedding party on her own terms. Some discussions last week indicated that she might consider that option. My basic threat of saying, if you don't tell the truth about why the wedding is off, I will have to be the one to do it, was not some kind of game.
Currently out of town on a business trip, alone in my hotel room. It feels like the first time in a while that I can breathe and reflect. On Wednesday, I contacted the other betrayed spouse and requested a meeting, expressing concern about how her husband was continually causing her harm. She disagreed, even though she understood why I wanted to meet and was informed about my Facebook post by a bridesmaid who is a close friend of hers. My wayward fiancé has been reaching out through various means ever since I posted about her second weekend of infidelity on Facebook. In the 10 days since, I haven't directly responded to her. Her tone in the messages has shifted from anger and spite to sadness and despair. Recently, she's been begging, pleading, negotiating, and making promises in her attempts to reach out. Discovering a handwritten letter from her in my mailbox, outlining why she believes she deserves another chance and a plan to make amends for everything. I believe it was the right decision to reveal the true reasons for canceling our wedding to our friends and family. Not only did it immediately refute her false claims about me being an offensive person, but it was also the least severe consequence of her not choosing the path of honesty to explain why our relationship ended. Talking to the groomsmen and 2 of the bridesmaids, it's evident that they swiftly supported me and turned against her for her infidelity and audacity in suggesting that I was offensive. Part of me is superficially concerned that her sudden change of heart and desire to reconcile may be influenced by the community's response to her actions. I worry that if there had been less condemnation from our group and if a few had believed her lies, she might not be so quick to beg for my forgiveness. However, I can't dwell on that. I know it might disappoint. Some of you might find this disappointing, but I agreed to meet with her father on Thursday. We met for afternoon drinks at his golf club, and our conversation was long, difficult, and intricate. Her father holds a prominent position in our city and is a highly influential individual, so I need to be cautious with what I share. Beyond that, he confided in me that he had two significant affairs when my wayward fiancée was younger, something she never disclosed to me. He feels responsible for her infidelity towards me, explaining that she has always looked up to him. He admitted that he didn't do a good job of explaining to his daughter, when both affairs were exposed, why his actions were so wrong and how they might have harmed her mother, the children, and the extended family. He told me that my wayward fiancée has never loved another man as deeply as she has loved me, and this is the first time someone has held her accountable for her poor behavior. He suggested that I possess significant power in this situation and have an opportunity akin to a god to grant his daughter forgiveness and redemption. There was a certain allure in the ideas surrounding those words. However, he made a mistake when he mentioned that due to his influence and reputation, he could open doors for me through certain means. I could see how his name could indeed enable such actions, yet when he proposed this to me, I lost my composure. In a split second, I realized that there was little difference between his belief that his name and power could absolve any wrongdoing, and my wayward fiancée's belief that her physical beauty could excuse her numerous infidelities. Thanks to the insights I've gained from this thread, I found the words to respond. I don't think you understand. It will take years for your daughter to re-enter my life in any capacity, I explained. For me to consider being with her again, I would need to see genuine understanding, empathy, self-awareness, and sincere remorse. I also noted her journey towards that will be long, as she has engaged in this behavior for years, and her damage runs deep. To his credit, he respected my stance and asked for more time. On Friday morning, a few hours before I was scheduled to go to the airport, the other betrayed spouse called, and with a trembling voice, requested to meet for coffee. I agreed out of respect and dignity. I won't divulge the details of the painful 40 minutes we spent together. However, witnessing the second set of photos was harrowing. Emotional journey for her, and it was challenging for her to process. By the end of our conversation, though, she seemed to be making some progress in coming to terms with the reality of her husband's actions, with one of her own friends, no less. I believe she has started her own slow and challenging journey towards healing. I briefly considered directing her to this thread, but I ultimately decided to keep this private, not wanting to complicate an already complex and sensitive situation further. Finally, yesterday, just before dinner, I received a lengthy email from my wayward fiance's mother. She showed empathy for how I might be feeling but went on to share that her daughter had confessed all the details of her affair to her. She mentioned that her daughter was utterly broken and requested that I, to some extent, take time to consider giving her another chance. It felt as though my pain and emotions in all of this were relegated to a mere afterthought. She began with a straightforward apology, expressing her deep regret for the pain she has caused me. Next, she mentioned that she and her Bob have decided to end their relationship for good. She then delved into explicit and almost clinical detail about how I had been her best lover, offering comparisons to Bob and her previous partners. While I no longer care about this aspect, I'll give her credit for the level of detail she provided, which was both unusual and somewhat touching. She proceeded to lay out a timeline of how things unfolded. A few weeks before the September dinner party, where I suspected they were holding hands under the table, Bob called her to discuss his marital issues with his wife, who happened to be my wayward fiance's friend. Apparently, he sought her insights. They met for coffee one workday morning, roughly 7 to 8 days before the dinner party, which led to a week of texting between them. On the morning of our dinner party, while pretending to be on an emotional call with her friend, she was, in fact, texting Bob about the upcoming event. She confessed that they did hold hands under the table during the party and later went for a walk, where they shared a kiss. This revelation confirmed my suspicions, and I could no longer deny the truth of their betrayal actions and expressed remorse in a detailed letter that unveiled the twisted narrative of her affair. The saga began with her previous fiancé, Bob, confessing his deep infatuation during an extended shopping trip. She admitted feeling ashamed for falling for his words, but he argued that if she felt even a fraction of what he did, she should explore it before committing to marriage. While she claimed to decline his proposition, The subsequent dinner party revealed otherwise as they engaged in covert footsie playing under the table, initiated by him. The narrative unfolded with their first kiss in late October, occurring at the home of another betrayed spouse during a weekend when I was away. She acknowledged the thrill of this wrongdoing but found it thrilling nonetheless. Through November, Bob pressured her heavily to have him and the other betrayed spouse join us on our January vacation. Text messages during November and December were rife with scenarios he devised for their illicit affair under our noses. Details about the commencement of their affair in early February emerged, with a strange penchant for meeting in my house as often as possible. Her twisted logic justified the affair as a means to cleanse herself of familial infidelity, preparing for a committed life with me. The bizarre attraction was fueled by her aversion to Bob, the man who paradoxically made her feel safe, combined with his desire to humiliate me. She disclosed her intention to live with her parents indefinitely, undergo therapy for the first time, and write monthly letters to update me on her progress. She professed a desire to win me back on my terms, expressing devastation over her actions and recognizing the depth of her love for me. Regarding previous comments about emotional offense, she offered a sort of apology, acknowledging her misguided statements but also recalibrating them to suggest that I hold myself and others to a moral standard she finds suffocating. Despite remorse, her convoluted explanation left me grappling with the complexity of her motives and the aftermath of the devastating revelations. Reflecting on the sentiments expressed by my now ex-fiancee, who seemed to acknowledge my integrity while questioning the perfectionist standards I uphold, I find myself emotionally drained to articulate the complex array of feelings coursing through me. At this juncture, understanding the plethora of emotions within me seems like an insurmountable task. The image I once had of her is irreversibly altered, forever tarnished by the revelations that unfolded. Despite contemplating if my stringent standards played a role, there's a lingering pull towards certain aspects of her, creating a dichotomy within.
Rest assured, I remain steadfast in maintaining no contact with her. In the wake of her revelations, the other betrayed spouse has reached out, seeking another coffee meeting this Thursday. Apparently, the insights gained from our previous interaction have contributed to a nuanced understanding within the community regarding my wayward fiancee's letter. This realization prompted me to approach her words with a discerning eye, unraveling the manipulation and evasions interwoven into her narrative. One of the challenges I faced was retrieving the engagement ring, a symbol of a shattered commitment, while upholding my commitment to no contact. Late on Tuesday night, I composed an email to my wayward fiancee's father, expressing gratitude for her letter but highlighting the violation of boundaries concerning the ring. His early morning response concurred with my perspective, proposing a lunch meeting at an exclusive restaurant, an ironic choice given the circumstances. Our lunch conversation, initially skirting around the underlying issue, resembled navigating treacherous waters, concealing the iceberg beneath the surface. Eventually, the ring was presented, not without some theatricality. Throughout, he continued to shoulder the blame for his daughter's predicament, emphasizing the purported threat to her mental health. He asserted that being denied me, something she supposedly wants, marked a significant shock in her life. However, the atmosphere soured towards the end of the meal. As I leaned back in my chair, observing him carefully for about 10 to 15 seconds, discomfort etched across his face. I decided to impart a lesson instilled in me by my mother at a tender age, the powerful mantra of taking responsibility for one's actions. Recounting my youth, I acknowledged my past proclivity for shifting blame, learning early on the liberating and empowering nature of owning up to mistakes. This revelation left him torn between anger and embarrassment, concluding a lengthy interaction fraught with complexities. Engulfed in a heavy silence, the air laden with unspoken tension, I delicately slid a photocopy of his daughter's revelatory letter across the table. The evident truth hung in the air, he hadn't perused the contents in its entirety. With a dismissive gesture, he crumpled the letter and shoved it back towards me. In a sinister tone, he proclaimed that accepting my fiancee's supposed truths at face value was the key to any hope of reconciliation in this temporary turmoil. Stunned into silence, I met his gaze, prompting him to express his desire to witness our reunion. Criticizing my demeanor, he implied a lack of class, attributing it to the grief I purportedly experienced. When pressed for clarity on what the right thing entailed, he offered no response, leaving me in a state of perplexity. He proceeded to settle the bill and left, leaving behind the realization that this man could have been my future father-in-law, a revelation tinged with the reality of our fractured relationship. Contrasting this disheartening encounter, I had a compelling coffee meeting with the other betrayed spouse a few hours later. Despite the challenges, I chose to share the contents of my wayward fiancee's letter with her, fostering a sense of contentment in our exchange. In turn, she unfolded her husband Bob's version of events, a narrative that astonishingly mirrored my fiancee's letter but with the blame squarely shifted onto her. In this twisted portrayal, he cast himself as the victim, labeling her the aggressive offender. Shockingly, the timeline unveiled that the affair likely commenced as early as June 2020. As we exchanged our tales from the crypt, a remarkable shift occurred. Laughter, nervous at first, gradually escalated into bouts of immature giggling and eventually evolved into genuine fits of laughter. This unexpected moment became a beautiful and cathartic release, a respite from the weighty atmosphere that had enveloped us for months. Despite the uplifting experiences of the past 48 hours, as I sit here chronicling these events, an unforeseen wave of contemplation washes over me. Wedding, a close friend who has been a steadfast pillar of support throughout this tumultuous ordeal. Amidst the fragility of my emotions and the looming shadow of despair, her reassuring presence provided a glimmer of solace, a respite from the pervasive darkness that has enveloped my recent days. Overwhelmed by an intricate tapestry of emotions, sadness, loneliness, and the haunting prospect of a trust shattered beyond repair, I grapple with the realization that my journey to recovery may be an arduous odyssey, one where the scars linger long after the wounds have ostensibly healed. Yet, amidst this labyrinth of despair, one irrefutable truth surfaces: the unequivocal decision that my wayward fiancé will not find refuge in the ruins of our fractured relationship. In the crucible of this emotional turmoil, I find myself in the throes of drafting a final missive to her, a poignant plea to exit my life permanently. As I pen these words, I am acutely aware of the chaotic aftermath that has unfolded, a cascade of events prompting me, once again, to question the underlying purpose of this chaotic saga. In the spirit of transparency, I share the letter I dispatched yesterday afternoon, cognizant of potential disapproval from those who question the necessity of such correspondence. Despite the anticipated backlash, the act of articulating my sentiments and releasing them into the ether brings a semblance of catharsis. For clarity, her name has been anonymized as Blake, a pseudonym veiling the true identity beneath the narrative's veneer. The letter, a triptych of emotional closure, categorically declares that this communication marks the terminus of our interactions. A plea, almost a supplication, for her to refrain from any future attempts at contact, echoed by a plea for her family and friends to respect this irrevocable boundary. The missive acknowledges the irreparable damage wrought upon our relationship, intertwining a measured response to her confessions with a poignant recollection of a once happy moment, now tainted by the revelation of her intentions. The narrative navigates through the delicate terrain of her therapy-seeking journey, a cautious optimism juxtaposed against the entrenched patterns of familial influence. A final realization crystallizes: the allegory of risk in that oceanside moment encapsulates the essence of her intentions and actions. In a bittersweet crescendo, the letter concludes, expressing a desire for her to find the courage to change, a tacit acknowledgement that my role in that transformation has reached its terminus. A semblance of normalcy persisted in my exchanges with the maid of honor, a steadfast friend who traversed the intricate emotional landscape with me. Yet, the arrival of my final email, the harbinger of a wedding that will forever remain a phantom, transpired in her presence on that fateful Saturday. Details of my ex-fiancee's night, veiled in inconsolable devastation, unfurled before the maid of honor, imparting a surreal quality to the unfolding drama. It is a spectacle that, in its juvenile essence, resonates akin to the lamentations of a thwarted teenager denied a Saturday night sleepover with a cherished friend. Beyond the theatrics of heartbreak, a disconcerting revelation emerged as the maid of honor relayed her father's response to my missive, a terse declaration of financial retribution. This ominous reaction stokes the flames of concern, whispering foreboding tales of potential reprisal. The specter of revenge looms, prompting a pragmatic question: how can I shield myself from this looming threat? In the orchestration of breakfast revelations, the maid of honor shared a pivotal facet of her own narrative. A year hence, she extricated herself from a long-term relationship marred by infidelity. Her perspective unveils an intriguing parallel, positing that my ex-fiancee was initially drawn to her, much like her attraction to me, underpinned by shared virtues of stability, reliability, and integrity. While loyalty to her friend prevails, the maid of honor also extends empathy to my plight, acknowledging the righteousness of my decisions. Yet, amid the ebb and flow of these revelations, concerns unfurl about another betrayed spouse, entangled in her own labyrinth of emotions. Daily exchanges dwindled into a void of silence after our Thursday meeting, an understandable retreat into the solace of personal grief. However, the maid of honor unfurls a disquieting subplot, a barrage of angry missives launched by the other betrayed spouse towards my ex-fiancee. This unforeseen development thrusts forth a dual-fold inquiry. First, a concern gnaws at the roots of empathy, contemplating whether the other betrayed spouse's anger is perhaps tainted by Bob's insidious influence, diverting blame away from my ex-fiancee. Beneath this concern lies a more pressing question: what boundaries should be etched in this complex web of emotions and grievances? As I navigate this convoluted terrain, reciprocating the gentle support bestowed upon me, I grapple with the ethical contours of my role in extending solace to the other betrayed spouse. The delicate dance of empathy, boundaries, and self-preservation unfolds against the backdrop of an unraveling tapestry of emotions. To share the outcome with the community. Despite the false accusation, the police swiftly concluded their investigation, bringing the tumultuous episode to a close in a mere 11 days. This allowed me to resume a semblance of normalcy, returning to the rhythm of work, a reliable anchor in these tempestuous times. Amidst the emotional roller coaster, I grapple with the aftermath of the accusation and its impact on my psyche. While the police's swift resolution is a testament to the unfounded nature of the claim, shadows of distress linger, casting a pall over the month's proceedings. Regrettably, the energy to delve into intricate details eludes me at the moment. A succinct recap seems apt: the ups and downs, the emotional ebb and flow, all forming a mosaic of a draining month. A significant meeting with a key player in this saga stirred the emotional waters, prompting introspection about my role and the delicate balance between guiding and respecting the autonomy of the other betrayed spouse. My emotional landscape undergoes seismic shifts, grappling with the residue of past betrayals and the looming specter of future relationships. The specter of a lack of confidence, a newfound companion in the journey of self-discovery, raises concerns about navigating closeness in relationships. The fear that intrusive thoughts may mar moments of joy in the company of someone distinct from my ex-fiancee adds a layer of complexity to the emotional tapestry. In the wake of these uncertainties, the community's insights and support become a refuge. Acknowledging the disarray of this post, a genuine mind dump, it serves as a testament to the unfiltered nature of the emotional maelstrom. With her, though unexpected and emotionally charged, turned out to be a cathartic moment. As I reveled in a backyard barbecue, embracing the tranquility of the evening on May 7th, her sudden appearance through the side gate created a surreal tableau. She seemed like a different person, or perhaps, I had distanced myself enough to perceive her anew, a realization that brought an odd reassurance, hinting at the progress of my healing journey. The encounter unfolded in distinct phases, each evoking a complex web of emotions. Initially, a surge of anger, fueled by the glaring context of her infidelity, gripped me. This anger intensified as she, provocatively dressed and exuding flirtation, invaded my personal space. Presenting an incongruous spectacle reminiscent of an initial courtship rather than the remnants of a shattered relationship. Yet, I maintained a surprising calmness, a testament to an inner resolve to confront the emotional tempest. The conversation traversed tumultuous terrain, revealing her insinuations about her father's involvement in the false accusation, hinting at a manipulative game orchestrated to instill fear. However, a shift occurred as she acknowledged the gravity of her actions and claimed a momentary lapse into a deep mental distress, akin to a fugue state. I seized the opportunity to articulate the profound hurt she inflicted, underscoring the irreparable damage to our connection. A decisive proclamation echoed, no future communication, no ties to her family. The exchange took an unexpected turn when I referenced my discussion with her ex-partner, unraveling a tide of anger from her. To her credit, she wrestled with this emotion, employing it as a conduit for self-reflection. She acknowledged the depth of her troubles, recognized the urgent need for authentic therapy to dissect the roots of her prolonged infidelity, and break free from her family's deleterious influence. In the aftermath, a weekend of true relaxation ensued, marked by a sense of closure. Her departure, while tinged with sadness, represented a symbolic step towards emancipation. As I relished the tranquility of my surroundings, the encounter, though emotionally charged, had an unexpected therapeutic quality, consolidating a newfound clarity in the wake of the storm. As I reflect on the recent developments, the liberation I initially felt after the cathartic encounter with my ex-fiancée took an unexpected turn. In the days that followed, my inbox became a battleground of explicit content, revealing photos of her sunbathing, each message pushing boundaries further. The relentless pursuit escalated with an explicit video, prompting my decisive response. Expressing anger, I informed her of my intention to pursue legal action to sever ties definitively. Subsequently, she apologized, recognizing her need for help, promising no further contact. In the midst of this turmoil, an intriguing and complex connection unfolded with the other betrayed spouse. Apologizing for her earlier silence, our exchanges transformed into a seemingly pleasant camaraderie, culminating in her inviting herself over for drinks. Beneath the surface, her struggle to break free from a toxic marriage became apparent, tinged with lingering emotions that transcended mere friendship. Our encounter took a passionate turn, sparking a dormant desire within me, a strange blend of liberation and arousal from my ex-fiance's absence. Yet, recognizing the precarious nature of the situation, we halted before it could escalate into something more. However, the frequent texts and attempts to arrange another meeting underscore the inherent complications of the entanglement. Navigating the complexities, I am acutely aware of the temptations at play. My hesitance to embrace closeness stems from a variety of factors: an unready heart for dating, a latent sense of revenge, and the realization that my role as a healthy support might be disproportionately significant in her life. The delicate balance between genuine attraction and the unhealthy dynamics of her marriage looms large, as I grapple with the potential repercussions on my own healing journey. In acknowledging the ongoing damage and seeking counseling, I recognize the need for continued introspection and growth. While the drama may not reach the heights of previous updates, the evolving landscape highlights the resilience needed to move forward. The reassurance gained from checking in on your stories provides a sense of shared experience, reminding me that, despite the individual nuances, we're all navigating our paths toward healing. Loneliness providing a supportive presence during this challenging period. The online community, including this platform, has been a beacon of strength and guidance, offering a space where I could find genuine, sober, and honest advice, essential for navigating the complex aftermath of betrayal. Reflecting on the recent events triggered by my ex-fiance's unexpected visit, it's evident that it momentarily sent me into a tailspin. However, as time has passed, I feel a sense of breaking free from the lingering effects of that tumultuous week. Engaging in a productive conversation with my lawyer, albeit with some displeasure on his part regarding my initial response to my ex-wayward spouse, has provided a level of relief. Not taking impulsive actions, such as forwarding or downloading the explicit content received, aligns with a legal strategy developed to address the false accusations, stalking, and intimidation perpetrated by my ex-fiancée and her family. Crucially, my brother, a reliable and wonderful person, is set to arrive, offering a valuable opportunity for quality time together. Serving as a moral compass, he'll help steer me away from potential traps that ensnared me in the past week. Additionally, I've taken steps to block my ex-fiancé on all available platforms. A significant development involves legal action initiated by my lawyer against my ex-fiancée and her family, focusing on the false accusations and the documented pattern of stalking. This proactive approach, aimed at achieving peace and resolution rather than seeking justice or compensation, has been empowering. Furthermore, the observation by my neighbor about my ex-fiancé sneaking in adds a strategic card to our arsenal, potentially constituting trespass if needed. In addressing the unexpected kiss with the other betrayed spouse, our subsequent phone call led to a shared understanding of the inappropriateness of our actions. While she acknowledged the desire for revenge driving the encounter, we mutually recognized the need for no contact in the near to medium-term future. Clear communication about my inability to serve as an informal counselor due to the unhealthy dynamics and the necessity to distance myself from the individuals involved underscores the importance of establishing boundaries. As I continue navigating this complex journey, I recognize the profound damage inflicted throughout this ordeal. Engaging in productive actions, while positive, may have overshadowed the essential grieving process. Loneliness persists, and while part of me yearns for companionship, I understand the importance of addressing my emotional baggage before seeking a new connection. The upcoming visit from my brother holds the promise of alleviating some of that loneliness and providing much-needed support.